Namaskar. Welcome to the next episode of Swami Shivananda Vani, or for the seekers of God, that is, spiritual talks of Mahapurush Maharaj Swami Shivanandji. So let's start today's episode. Maharaj today is going to talk about the worship of the Divine Mother. At Belur Math, it is devoid of all ulterior motive. The body must die. Call on Sri Ramakrishna. He'll talk about food, then give advice to the married. Master is the self. Weep for God. Place again is Belur Math. Time is November 1st, 1929. The worship of Mother Kali was performed with great joy at the mutt last night. The whole mutt was astir with worship, reading of scriptures, music, etc. Many devotees and monks had come from Calcutta to join in the worship. It started at 9:30 at night and ended at 5:45 in the morning. After the worship, the Saptasati home also was performed in the same sacrificial fire. Mahapurushji was full of joy throughout the night, and quite often he sent his attendant to the place of worship to get full report of the progress made. When the worshippers started singing the praise of Kali, he too joined his voice to it. When they sang, who indeed cares for all the places of pilgrims like Gaya, Ganga, Prabhash, etc., if one's last breath is drawn in the name of Kali, he remarked, "Ah, the master sang this song quite often." He himself sang the whole of it along with the chorus singers. In the morning, he was seated in his own room. The sannyasis and the brahmacharis came there one by one to pay their respects to him. He was still full of joy of the previous night's worship. That joy expressed itself through his very word and act. A little later, the Divine Mother's prasad was brought in for him. At this, he was exceedingly happy. But he remarked with some merriment, "I can take nothing of this. The mere sight must be enough for me." With this, he just touched each thing with the tip of his finger and then tasted it thus. He said, "Fine, the offering to the mother has been well made." When the attendant was removing the dish, he said, "Mind you, keep something for the dogs also, for nobody will remember them. They too expect something. It will give them great joy." And he started calling his dog, "Kelo, Kelo." When the talk turned to the last night's worship, he said, "Ah, the whole mutt is still full of the smell of ghee offered in the sacrificial fire. The smell of a sacrifice sanctifies whatever or wherever it goes. How sweet a smell it is." Saying thus, he drew in some long breath. In connection with the worship, a monk said, "Maharaj, it was a great joy last night. We did not experience such joy for quite a long time. The chorus songs also were excellent. They lasted till 3 o'clock in the morning." Mahapurushji, why should it not be so? For it was the Divine Mother's worship, to be sure. She, out of her grace, vouchsafed happiness to all. She herself was personally present to accept the worship. She is no ordinary mother. She is the mother worshipped by the Master. The Master himself worshipped Mother Kali. The Master called Mother that very being which the Vedas declare as truth, knowledge, infinite Brahman, which the dualist called God, the Shaktas call Shakti, the Vaishnavas call Vishnu, and the Shaivas call Shiva. As a result of the worship of that mother herself, the master was blessed with all kinds of realization. He attained perfection in all modes of divine communion: dualistic, qualified non dualistic, and so on. The worship performed here has no parallel. Here, the worship is done by the monks and the devotees through their devotion. Those who have wealth can perform their worship with great pomp by spending thousands of rupees. But such devotional worship as here you will not find elsewhere. Here it was performed with heart and soul by pure minded sannyasis and brahmacharis. How intense was their sincerity and how deep their devotion. Mother is much pleased thereby. Most people worship her with some ulterior motive. How many are there who worship her without any motive, out of pure devotion alone? Here, none has any selfish desire, any ulterior motive. The worship here is merely for the pleasure of the Divine Mother. And along with that, how much of japa and meditation, reading from scriptures, and singing have been accomplished, while the pure hearted sannyasis and brahmacharis themselves made all the arrangements for the worship. You cannot find such a thing anywhere else, my son. Such perfect and sattvic worship is rare in the world. It was now about 10 o'clock in the morning. A woman devotee came. She was an initiated disciple of Mahapurushji. She bowed down at his feet and inquired about his health. In answer, he said, "No, my daughter, my health is not good. In fact, it is very bad. It is becoming worse with the passing of time. For after all, the body has its own law to follow, and this body has grown pretty old. Now it will gradually get destroyed." With tearful eyes, the devotee said, "Father, to whom shall we go if you leave us? Where else shall we go to unburden the sorrows of our hearts?" Mahapurushji: "Why, my child? There is Master, to be sure. He is residing in your heart. He is your innermost self, as also the inmost self of all. Take refuge in Him. Pray to Him. He will fill your heart with peace. He will remove all your wants. The body has to die one day or another. Not a single body is immortal. It is as sure as anything that this body, made of the different elements, will again disintegrate into them. Hence, take refuge in the Lord, who is the eternal truth, the everlasting, unchanging, conscious self of every being. Hold on to Him, then you will have no fear. You will easily cross the shoreless sea of this world. The devotee: "Father, you are my Guru. You have showered your grace on me. We are assailed with various kinds of doubts, questions, and despondency. To whom can we go to get these removed? Here, while I am at your feet, I feel so much as at peace in my heart, so much joy. But when I think about what will be my lot when you leave us, my heart begins to cry helplessly." Mahapurushji: "Look here, my daughter. I have told you all there is to tell. God is the only Guru. He is the teacher of the whole world. It was God Himself in His fullness that incarnated in human body as Sri Ramakrishna to save His own creatures. He brought us along with Him. He lived in the human body for 50 years, bestowed His grace on innumerable persons in several ways, and left a transcendental idea of life behind for all to follow. The instructions imparted by Him through His life The only thing he revealed in his own life is that the world is false. It is false, and that God alone is true and eternal. Now he is doing good to the world through a fine body and in an invisible way. He reveals himself even today to those devotees who call on him earnestly, and he blesses them in 1,000 ways. It is He who has kept us in these physical bodies. When these bodies die, we too shall get united with God in our fine bodies and shall live in union. We have to take the responsibility here and hereafter for all those whom we have accepted as our own. If the devotees pray with pure hearts and earnestness, they will get the vision of us as well, in a more clear and vivid way than you see today. So, my daughter, from now on, try to have this vision inside. How long, after all, can these external meetings last? The devotee. Bless me accordingly, Father, that I may see you inside and outside everywhere. Mahapurushji, that you will do. If you pray earnestly and with tears in your eyes, you will get such a vision. But you cannot have this unless there is this deepest yearning. The devotee, Father, I have a question to ask. The scriptures declare that one cannot realize God unless one observes strict brahmacharya. The mind does not become pure unless there is brahmacharya. Now, please tell me how I can observe this. Should I be very strict about food and such other things? Mahapurushji, no, my daughter. You need not be very strict about these matters. Only use your discrimination a little more when the following the usual routine. You may well avoid those things that excite the nerves too much. Food is not meant for mere gratification of the sense of taste. It is meant for the maintenance of the body. And the maintenance of the body is meant for God realization. It is better to avoid those kinds of food that create mental disturbance and prevent the mind from concentrating on God. Brahmacharya does not mean the mere control of food. The real brahmacharya is the control of all the sense organs. Unless one can do that, the realization of divine bliss is a far cry. Is it possible to get the bliss of Brahman unless one can forsake the pleasures of this trifling body? You are in the householder stage of life. The Master has made the path of God realization easy for householders. He used to say that after the birth of 2 or 3 children, a virtuous couple should live like brother and sister. They should forget their physical relationships and talk about God as though they were both servants of God. Life is not meant for the pleasure of the body. Realization of God alone is the goal of life. Now that you have attained this rare human birth, do not allow your life to be spent in vain. Realize the nature of the self. The Master is your inmost self. Try to realize him. He is not just a man 3.5 cubits in length. He is God himself. He is the very self of all creatures. Once you can realize him, your worldly bondage will be cut as unders forever. You will not have to undergo the rounds of births and deaths anymore. The Gita says, "That is my supreme abode. Going whither, they return not." Realize that supreme being, and then you will be free from this delusion of birth and death, my child. Then only will you attain the highest state. It is only by realizing Him that one gets rid of all passions and desires, attains fullness, and becomes the self itself, having obtained which a man regards no other acquisition as superior to that. The devotee, how shall I be able to realize him? Mahapurushji, the master used to say, God can be realized when all the three types of longing unite in one: the longing of a chaste wife for her husband, the affection of the mother for her child, and the attachment of a miser to his wealth. If one can combine all these three kinds of longing into one and direct it to God, then God will be realized. Call on Him, repeat His name, meditate on Him, and pray to Him with the sincerest earnestness. Say, Lord, kindly reveal yourself to me. Reveal yourself to me, please, and weep and weep and weep disconsolately. Then only He will be moved and grant you the vision of Himself. For He is very mindful of those who take refuge in Him. He never forsakes one to whom He has once granted refuge. So we pray that we may also be able to get refuge at His feet. With that, we come to the end of this episode. Stay tuned to Devakshar, like and share our videos, and do subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for being with us. Namaskar.